My stepmother sold my house while I was away on a business trip, and the IRS just arrested her at the airport. I'm not even sure where to begin, but since this is Reddit, I'll keep it straightforward. I returned home today to find a sold sign planted in my front yard. My stepmother, Lisa, smirked at me and said I didn't need a lavish home as she packed for her exclusive European getaway. I let her board her flight, but when she returned, she had nowhere to stay. Before I dive into how this all unfolded, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah, I'm 30 years old, and I work as a civil engineer. My job pays well, but it's incredibly demanding. I spend more time on site than at home, constantly traveling between projects. The one thing that kept me grounded was my house, my sanctuary, or so I thought, because as of today, it no longer belongs to me. You don't need a house like this, kid. I knew something was off the moment I turned onto my street. I had just returned from a 3-week business trip out of state, utterly exhausted from 3 hours of airplane sleep. All I wanted was to take a shower and collapse on my couch. But as I pulled into my driveway, my stomach dropped at the sight of that bright red and white sold sign stuck in my front lawn. I slammed on the brakes so hard that my tires screeched, my mind refusing to accept what I was seeing. No, this had to be a mistake. I parked the car and practically sprinted to the front door, my work bag still slung over my shoulder. But before I could step inside, I heard her voice, Lisa, my stepmother. She was inside my house, packing up my belongings. I stormed through the front door, my heart racing. What is going on, Lisa? I demanded, my voice echoing in the empty space. Lisa barely looked up from sealing a box with packing tape. Oh, hey, sweetie, you're back earlier than I expected. Sweetie? She always called me that, as if I were still some naive teenager instead of a grown woman who had worked hard for everything she owned. I dropped my bag onto the floor. Why is there a sold sign on my lawn? Lisa let out a dramatic sigh, as if I were the one inconveniencing her. We sold it. My stomach twisted. We? I took a step closer, my heart racing. What do you mean, we? Lisa set down the tape and looked at me as if I were slow on the uptake. Your father and I, obviously. You don't need a big house like this, Sarah. It's ridiculous for someone your age. You should be renting a small apartment and saving money. She waved her hand dismissively. You'll thank me later. I felt my fingers curl into fists. Lisa, this is my house. I bought it with my money. You had no right. She laughed a condescending, mocking laugh. Sweetie, you think you did this all on your own? You think you're some self-made success story? She clapped me on the shoulder like I was a child. It's all family money, shared assets. You don't actually own anything. I recoiled as if she had slapped me. Family money? Shared assets? No, that was a lie. How had they stolen my house? Here's where things get complicated. Yes, I paid for the house. Yes, I made every mortgage payment. But the house was originally purchased when I was 24, too young to secure a good loan on my own. My credit was solid, but the bank still required a co-signer, and my father volunteered Lisa. It's just paperwork, Sarah, he had said at the time, waving away my concerns. It'll still be your house. So, I signed the documents, believing my name was on the deed, and it was at first. What I didn't know was that Lisa had refinanced the mortgage behind my back while I was away. My name had quietly been removed from the deed months ago, and now the house was solely in her name. Legally, she had every right to sell it. I felt sick. My voice caught in my throat. Lisa smirked. Oh, don't look so surprised. You signed the paperwork years ago. You should really read the fine print, sweetie. My hands were shaking. Where is Dad? Lisa shrugged. Already in Italy. Needed a little break. I gritted my teeth. So you sold my house, took the money, and left me with what, exactly? Oh, don't be so dramatic, she smirked, patting my cheek like I was a toddler. You're young, you'll figure it out. My house was sold out from under me. I called my father again, and this time he picked up. "Emma, I really don't appreciate the tone of your messages," he said, his voice calm and detached, as if I were the one overreacting. I gripped my phone so tightly that my fingers ached. "You don't appreciate my tone?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Dad, are you out of your mind? You sold my house." He sounded exasperated. "Emma, sweetheart, Lisa and I talked about this, and we really think it's for the best." I nearly dropped the phone. "For the best? For who?" He insisted. "Honey, you have to admit a house like that was just too much for you. It's expensive, big, and a lot of responsibility. You work so much, you barely have time to enjoy it. What's the point of throwing money into a place you don't even use?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, I bought the house. I wanted that responsibility." He sighed, as if I were being childish. "Emma, you're still young. You don't need a massive house at this stage of your life. Lisa and I found a much better option for you, a modern little condo right in the city. It's low maintenance, affordable, and much more suitable." I was speechless. A condo? They had stolen my house, and now he was trying to convince me to settle for a condo? He sighed again, sounding almost patronizing. "Sweetheart, you have to see the bigger picture. Lisa really helped you here. She freed you from all that stress. And listen, we didn't just take everything. A portion of the money will go toward helping you get that condo. Lisa will handle the details once we're back." My stomach turned. There was a pause, and then he added, "Well, a little went toward our trip, but Emma, come on, it's all family money. We all deserve a little happiness, don't we?" I felt like I was going to be sick. He actually believed this. He thought they had done me a favor. Legally, Lisa had every right to sell the house. I spent the next 2 hours going through my paperwork, desperate to find some way to fight this. There had to be something, some legal loophole, some document that would prove the house was still mine. But when I got to the refinancing papers, my stomach turned to stone. There it was, in black and white. Months ago, while I had been working out of state, Lisa had refinanced the mortgage in her name only. My name had been removed from the deed, making her the sole owner. She had done it so quietly, so strategically, that by the time I realized what had happened, it was already too late. I read the fine print 3 times, hoping I had missed something, but I hadn't. Legally, she had every right to sell my home. The money was already gone. My next move was to check my bank accounts. I knew I hadn't seen any money from the sale, but I needed to be sure. When I opened the banking app, my hands started to shake because I saw exactly what I feared, a $490,000 deposit from the home sale, followed by multiple withdrawals, hotel bookings, luxury brands, a wire transfer to an international account. I felt like I was going to be sick. The money wasn't just gone, it had already been spent. But I wasn't done yet. I sat in my empty house, staring at my phone, feeling rage build up in my chest. Lisa thought she had one, but I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and made 2 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, the second to my Aunt Diana. You see, Lisa had forgotten one crucial detail. The only reason she had the credit to refinance the house was because of my father, and I knew something he didn't want her to know. Lisa was about to lose everything. Let her enjoy her European tour, let her sip champagne, she had gotten away with it. But when she landed back home, there wouldn't be a single penny left in her name, and she was about to learn exactly what it felt like to have everything taken away from her. Alright, Reddit, time for the fun part. Lisa thought she had pulled off the perfect scam. She took my house, spent the money, and jetted off to Europe, all while patting herself on the back for helping me. But what she didn't know was that she had left behind just enough loose ends for me to unravel her entire life. So while she was sipping overpriced wine in Paris, I was setting the stage for her downfall. Step 1, freeze everything. If there's anything shady in her books, I'll find it, Diana promised. And if she's evading taxes, she's going to have bigger problems than you. I grinned, that was exactly what I was hoping to hear. Step 3, the final blow. For the next 2 weeks, I kept my head down and waited. I stayed completely silent, didn't call my father, didn't send any messages to Lisa. I let her think everything was fine. Meanwhile, Sam dug into the mortgage paperwork, and Diana poured through Lisa's finances. Then, just 3 days before Lisa was set to fly back home, I received 2 phone calls. The first was from Sam. "Bingo," she exclaimed. "Lisa committed mortgage fraud. Apparently, she forged your signature on some documents to push through the refinancing without your consent. That means her entire sale of the house was illegal, which means I can sue her for everything she's worth." "Send me everything," I told Sam. "We're bringing her down." An hour later, Diana called. "You're going to love this," she said, almost laughing. "I found undisclosed income in Lisa's tax filings." I perked up. "What kind of income?" "Let's just say she's been hiding money from the IRS for years, hundreds of thousands in under-the-table cash, all unreported. If I make the right phone calls, she's going to have a serious audit on her hands." A slow, cold smile crept onto my face. "Make the calls," I said, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Lisa had taken everything from me, and now I was going to take everything from her. Lisa landed back home and learned she was screwed. Her flight touched down at 4:15 p.m. on a Sunday. By 4:37 p.m., I was sitting in my car across the street from her house, waiting. I didn't have to wait long. A black Uber SUV pulled up, and out stepped Lisa, dressed in a designer coat and looking smug as ever. I watched as she rolled her suitcase up the driveway, humming to herself. When she reached the front door, she punched in the key code, but nothing happened. Lisa frowned and tried again, still nothing. Then the door swung open, revealing my father, who did not look happy. Even from across the street, I could hear their voices. "What's wrong, Larry? Why is the code not working?" My father folded his arms. "We need to talk." Lisa tried to step inside, but he blocked the doorway. "Not out here." "Just let me in," she insisted, her voice suddenly trembling. "The bank froze our accounts." Her expression changed instantly. "What?" "I don't know what happened," she cried. "Everything was fine, and then this morning I tried to withdraw money, and they said the account was locked." Lisa's face turned pale, very, very pale. Then her phone rang. She answered, stepping away from my dad, and that's when I saw it, her entire body stiffened. She started yelling into the phone. I knew exactly who she was talking to because the IRS audit notice had just landed in her inbox. Her tax fraud had just been exposed, her illegal mortgage had just been flagged, and her entire financial life had just collapsed. She had no idea who did it. I drove away smiling. I could have stayed and watched, I could have walked up to Lisa, stared her dead in the eyes, and told her exactly what I had done. But I didn't. The best revenge is letting her realize all on her own that she lost. I lost my house, but Lisa? She just lost everything. Alright, Reddit, buckle up because this is where it gets really good. Last time, Lisa landed back home only to find her bank accounts frozen, her tax fraud exposed, and my father blocking her from entering their house. She had no idea what was happening, only that her entire financial life was crumbling around her. But that was just the beginning because now it was time to watch her drown. Who did this? I didn't stick around to watch Lisa lose her mind in real time. Instead, I drove home, made myself a drink, and waited for the inevitable call from my father. It didn't take long. At exactly 6:42 p.m., my phone lit up with his name. I let it ring, then ring again, and again. Finally, I picked up. "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. His voice was shaking. "Emma, do you know what's happening?" I leaned back in my chair, sipping my whiskey. "Depends." "What's wrong?" He let out a panicked breath. "Lisa's accounts are frozen, the IRS is investigating her for tax fraud, and the mortgage company is saying there's a legal Emma," he whispered, "she's going to lose everything." I smiled. Good. There was a sharp intake of breath. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do," I said, "because guess what, Dad? She's not the only one losing everything. I found out what happened next from Aunt Diana, who had front row seats to the meltdown of the century. After hanging up on my father, I texted Diana, "How bad is it?" "Bad," she replied. "Rachel tried to take money out of one of her business accounts, frozen. I tried to call her tax gal and found out the IRS is auditing her." Panicked, Diana continued, "Then she tried to get into the house, and Dad." "What?" I interrupted. "Dad kicked her out?" "You're kidding." "Nope. He's freaking out. He doesn't want to get caught in her mess, so he locked her out and told her to fix her own problems." "Where is she now?" "No clue, but if I had to guess, she's sleeping in her car." I couldn't stop grinning. Rachel had spent the last 10 years lording over me, treating me like some stupid kid who needed her guidance, and now she was homeless. "Emma, please, we need your help." A day passed, then another. On the third day, my phone rang again. "Dad," I let it ring, then ring again. Finally, I answered. "Emma," his voice was strained. "We need to talk." I set my drink down. "About what?" He hesitated. She's in trouble. She has nowhere to go. She's sleeping in a motel." I laughed. "Oh no, not a motel. How tragic." "Emma," he pleaded, "please, we need your help." I leaned forward. "You need my help? You mean the same child who wasn't ready for the responsibility of owning a house? The same girl you stole from?" "Sweetheart, wait, where's the money?" I cut him off. "Where's the money from the house?" Silence. Then quietly, "It's gone." I closed my eyes, feeling a deep, satisfied burn in my chest. Of course it was. They had spent it all: first-class flights, luxury hotels, shopping sprees in Paris. They had burned through nearly $500,000 in weeks, and now they had nothing. I took a slow breath. "Let me get this straight, you stole my house, sold it, blew the money, and now that Rachel is homeless, you expect me to fix it?" His voice cracked. "We made a mistake." I smiled. "Yes, you did." Then I hung up. Rachel finally breaks. That should have been the end of it, but Rachel wasn't done yet. That night, at exactly 11:47 p.m., I heard a knock on my door. I checked the peephole, and there she was, Rachel. Her usually slicked-back hair was a mess, her suit was wrinkled, and her eyes were bloodshot. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door just enough to lean against the frame. "Rachel." She let out a shaky breath. "Emma, listen." I cut her off. "Whatever you're about to ask." Her jaw tightened. "I just need some time, a place to stay while I laughed right in her face. She flinched, then very slowly, I leaned in and whispered, "This isn't your home anymore." I watched her face twist, anger, shame, desperation, all flashing at once. "You selfish child." I stepped back and slammed the door in her face. She pounded on it. "Emma, you selfish person." I locked the deadbolt and then walked away. Her shouting faded as I grabbed a beer, sat on my couch, and turned on the TV. Rachel was done, and I had one. Alright, Reddit, this is it, the final part. Rachel had lost everything: her bank accounts frozen, her tax fraud exposed, her husband locked her out, her reputation destroyed. And now she was standing outside my door, begging for help like a fool who played herself. So how did it all finally end? Well, it was even better than I expected. The last desperate move. After I slammed the door in Rachel's face, I expected her to leave. She didn't. Instead, she started pounding on the door, her voice shaking with rage. "Emma, you arrogant woman. You think this is funny? Let me in." I took another sip of my beer, unbothered. It turns out that forging someone's name on a mortgage document is highly illegal. My father filed for divorce. Yep, the moment he realized Lisa was dragging him down with her, he jumped ship, froze their shared accounts, hired his own lawyer, and kicked her out for good. I'd love to say he did it because he finally grew a conscience, but no, he did it because he was scared. I wasn't mad about it. In fact, it was perfect because now Lisa had nowhere to go. Where's Lisa now? Here's the best part. I hadn't heard anything about her for months, but then a few weeks ago, I ran into Aunt Diana at a coffee shop. We sat down, caught up, and then I finally asked, "So where did Lisa end up?" Diana grinned. "You're going to love this." Turns out, after Lisa lost everything, she tried to flee the country. I raised an eyebrow. What? She actually booked a flight and tried to disappear? Yep, but there was one small problem. The IRS had already flagged her passport. So when she tried to board the plane, they arrested her at the airport. I nearly choked on my coffee. You're serious? Diana laughed. Dead serious. Last I heard, she's trying to fight the charges, but between the fraud case, the tax evasion, and the debts, she's screwed. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. It was over. Lisa was done. As for me? Well, I got my money back. Not all of it, of course, the house was gone. But between the lawsuit settlement and damages, I walked away with a very nice chunk of change. My father tried to apologize, sending long guilt-ridden texts and leaving voicemails about how he had made a mistake and wanted to fix things. But I never responded because I realized something: he was never really on my side. He had stood by Lisa until it was no longer convenient, and I was just collateral damage. So, I cut him off. For the first time in my life, I had no family obligations, no guilt, no weight dragging me down, just freedom. And wow, did it feel good. Final thoughts: a few months ago, I was homeless and betrayed. Now, I have a new place, a fresh start, a bank account full of Lisa's money, and best of all, I sleep like a baby every night because I know somewhere out there, Lisa is lying awake in a prison cell, wondering where it all went wrong. And that's the sweetest revenge of all.